Jake Morrison pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway of Terminal 7. The wheels made a soft squeaking sound that echoed in the empty space. It was 3 in the morning, and most of the alien travelers had gone to sleep in the transit. Pods were moved on to other parts of the station. He liked the night shift. During the day, the terminal was crazy with noise and activity. Hundreds of different alien species walked through these halls every day. Some were tall and scary looking. Those were small and moved in groups. A few looked almost like humans, but with different colored skin or extra arms. Jake had learned not to stare. Most aliens did not like being watched by humans. Humans were. Still new to space travel, only 15 years ago, they had figured out how to travel faster than light. Before that, they thought they were alone in the universe. Now, they knew there were thousands of different species out there. Most of them had been traveling between stars for hundreds or thousands of years. Jake stopped at the first trash bin and emptied it into his cart. The smell was always interesting. Different aliens ate different things, and their garbage smelled like nothing on Earth. Some of it was sweet, some was sour, some made his eyes water. He had been working at the Meridian Transit Hub for 3 years now. The pay was good, and he got to see amazing things every day. Giant creatures that looked like walking trees, small beings that floated in the air, aliens, with too many eyes or no eyes at all. It was like living in a science fiction movie. The job was simple. Clean the floors, empty the trash, wipe down the tables in the food courts, and make sure the bathrooms worked. The bathrooms were the hardest part. Different species had very different ideas about what a bathroom should be like. Jake moved to the next section. Past the sleeping pods where tired travelers rested. The pods were designed to work for many different body types. Some were filled with water, others had no gravity inside. Few were kept very hot or very cold. As he worked, Jake thought about his life before this job. He had worked in a factory on Earth, making parts for spaceships. It was boring work, and the pay was bad. When he heard about jobs in space, he applied right away. His mother had been worried. She thought space was dangerous. His father had been proud. He said Jake was brave to try something new. The truth was, Jake was not very brave. He was just tired of his old life. He wanted to see new things and meet new people, even if those people were not actually people at all, but aliens from other worlds. Jake reached the main food court and started cleaning the tables. This was his favorite part of the station. During the day, aliens from dozens of different worlds sat here eating their meals. The food court had sections for every type of diet. Some aliens ate plants, some ate meat, some ate rocks or metal. Others absorbed energy directly from light or heat. The human section was small, but always busy. Other species were curious about human food. They said it was too salty and had too many different flavors mixed together. But they kept coming back to try more. As Jake wiped down a table, he noticed something in the corner of the food court. A small figure sat on the floor. Near the wall was an alien, but not like any he had seen before. The creature was about the size of a human child, maybe 4 feet tall. Its skin was pale blue and looked thin, like you could see through it. It had large, dark eyes that seemed too big for its head. The alien wore old clothes that looked like they had been nice once, but were now torn and dirty. It sat very still, just watching the few late-night travelers who walked by. Jake had seen many different aliens in his 3 years here, but this one looked different. It looked sad. Jake finished cleaning that section and moved to the next area. But he kept looking back at the small alien in the corner. It had not moved at all. It just sat there, watching after another hour of work. Jake was done with the food. Court, the small alien was still there in the same position. Jake walked over to where it sat. "Hey there," Jake said softly. "Are you okay?" The alien looked up at him with those big dark eyes. It seemed surprised that someone was talking to. For a moment, it did not say anything. Then it spoke in a voice that was quiet and musical. "This one is fine, Tall Walker. This one waits." Jake had heard many alien languages through the translation devices everyone wore. This alien's voice was different. It sounded like singing, but sad singing. "What are you waiting for?" Jake asked. The alien looked away. "This one waits for transport that will not come." This one waits for credits that are not owned. This one waits for kindness that does not exist. Jake felt something twist in his stomach. He had heard that feeling before. It was the same feeling he got when he saw hurt animals or sad children. His mother had always said he cared too much about others. She said it would get him in trouble someday. "Are you hungry?" Jake asked. The alien's eyes went wide. Why would Tallwalker ask this question? "Because you look hungry," Jake said, "and I might be able to help." The alien stared at him for a long time. Jake could see fear in those dark eyes, but he could also see hope. "This one has no credits to pay," the alien said. "I'm not asking for money," Jake said. "I'm just asking if you're hungry." The alien nodded slowly. "This one has not eaten in many cycles." Jake thought about the human food section. There were always leftovers at the end of the day. The station threw away pounds of perfectly good food every night. It seemed wrong to waste it when someone was hungry. "Wait here," Jake said. "I'll be right back." Jake went to the human food. Arian looked through the items that were going to be thrown away. He found a container of vegetable soup, some bread, and a piece of fruit. Most aliens could eat human plant-based foods without getting sick. He hoped this one could too. He brought the food back to where the alien sat. The creature looked at the container like it was the most amazing thing in the world. "This one cannot accept," the alien said, but its voice shook. "Sure you can," Jake said. He sat down on the floor next to the alien. "My name is Jake. What's yours?" The alien hesitated. "This one is called Zeph." "Nice to meet you, Zeph," Jake said. "Now eat something before you fall over." Zeph took the container with hands that shook. The alien's fingers were long and thin, with an extra joint that human fingers did not have. Zeph opened the container and smelled the soup. An expression that might have been a smile crossed the alien's face. "It smells like growing things," Zeph said. "It's a vegetable soup, pretty basic stuff." Zeph ate slowly, taking small bites and chewing carefully. Jake could see that every bite was important to the hungry alien. It made Jake feel good too. Watch. It also made him feel sad that Zeph had been so hungry. "Where are you trying to go?" Jake asked. "Far sector near the rim worlds," Zeph said between bites. "Other Kethmori live there now. This one hopes to find them." "Kethmori? Is that your species?" Zeph nodded. "Few are left now. Most died in the Great War. Others scattered to distant worlds." Jake had never heard of the Kethmori before. But then there were thousands of alien species in the galaxy. He could not know them all. "How long have you been traveling?" Jake asked. "Many months," Zeph said. "Transport is expensive. One worked when work could be found, but work is hard to find for Kethmori. Most species do not trust us." "Why not?" Zeph was quiet for a long time. Old mistakes, old wars, old pride that cost too much. Jake did not understand all of that, but he understood being judged for things that were not your fault. Humans were still proving themselves to the galaxy. Many species thought humans were too young and too reckless to be trusted with space travel. "Well," Jake said, "you seem okay to me?" Zeph looked at him with surprise. "Tallwalker Jake thinks Kethmori is okay. I think you're a person who's hungry and far from home," Jake said. "That's enough for me." For the first time, Zeph really smiled. It was a small smile, but it made the alien's whole face look different. Jake looked at his watch. His shift was almost over. "I have to finish my work," he said. "But I come back tomorrow night, same time. If you're still here, I'll bring more food." "Why would Tallwalker Jake do this?" Zeph asked. Jake thought about the question. Why was he helping a strange alien he had just met? He was not sure he could explain it in a way that made sense. "'Cause it's the right thing to do," he said finally. Zeph watched Jake get up and walk back to his cleaning cart. The alien sat very still, holding the empty food container, and did not take those big dark eyes off Jake until he disappeared around the corner. Jake finished the rest of his shift, thinking about the small blue alien in the corner. He wondered what kind of war the Kethmori had fought. He wondered how many of them were left. He wondered if Zeph would still be there tomorrow night. Most of all, he wondered why helping one hungry alien felt more important than anything else he had done in a long time. As Jake clocked out and headed home, he was already planning what food to bring the next night. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness was about to change his life in ways he could never imagine. Jake came to work the next night with a small bag of food in his locker. He had stopped at the human market on his way home that morning and bought some simple things. Crackers, dried fruit, a thermos of soup he had made himself. Nothing fancy, but it was better than the leftovers from the food court all day. He had thought about the small blue alien named Zeph. Jake wondered if Zeph had found somewhere safe to sleep. He wondered if anyone else had bothered to help. Most importantly, he wondered if Zeph would still be there when he arrived for his shift. The night manager, Carol Peterson, was finishing her report when Jake clocked in. She was a short, round woman who had been working in space for 10 years. She knew more about aliens than anyone Jake had ever met. "Hey, Jake," she said, without looking up from her papers. "Quiet night so far. Just the usual late transports and some cargo haulers." "Oh, and security wants you to keep an eye on Section 7. They think someone might be sleeping rough in the food court." Jake's heart jumped. Sleeping rough? Yeah, homeless. Someone without proper transit papers or credits for a pod. "If you see anyone, just let security know. They'll handle it." Jake nodded, but inside he was worried. What if security found Zeph? What happened to the small alien then? Jake had heard stories about beings without proper papers. Sometimes they got sent back to wherever they came from. Sometimes they just disappeared. "Sure thing, Carol," Jake said. "I'll keep an eye out." Carol finished her report and gathered her things. "Have a good shift, Jake. Try not to let any aliens adopt you. Swear, half the species in this station seem to think humans are either pets or children." After Carol left, Jake started his regular routine. But instead of beginning with the far sections like usual, he went straight to the food court. He needed to know if Zeph was still there. The food court was mostly empty. Few late-night travelers sat at tables, eating quiet meals. Jake looked toward the corner where he had found Zeph the night before. The small alien was there, sat in exactly the same position, watching the few people who passed by. When Zeph saw Jake approaching, those big dark eyes lit up with something. That might have been relief. "Tall walker," Jake returned. Zeph said softly. "I said I would," Jake replied. He sat down on the floor next to Zeph, just like the night before. "How are you doing?" This one as well. This one waited as promised. Jake could see that Zeph looked tired. The alien's pale blue skin seemed even more transparent than before. Those large eyes had dark circles under them. "Do you sleep at all?" Jake asked. "Sleep is difficult in open spaces. Too many sounds, too many strangers." Jake understood. The transit station never really got quiet. Even in the middle of the night, there were always ships arriving and departing. Announcement systems spoke in dozens of languages. Cargo handlers moved equipment around. For someone trying to sleep on the floor, it would be nearly impossible to rest. "Are you hungry?" Jake asked. Zeph nodded. "Always hungry now. But this one does not expect." "Good thing I brought dinner then," Jake interrupted. He pulled the bag of food from his pocket. "I made soup at home. It's probably better than the stuff from the food court." Zeph stared at the bag like it contained treasure. Talwalker Jake brought food specifically for this one. "Yeah, I figured you'd still be hungry." Jake opened the thermos and poured soup into the cup that came with it. The soup was simple. Just vegetables and broth. But it was hot and smelled good. He handed it to Zeph, along with some crackers. Zeph took the cup with both hands and breathed in the steam. "It smells like home," the alien said quietly. "What was your home like?" Jake asked. Zeph was quiet for a moment, drinking the soup slowly. "Green," Zeph said finally. "Many growing things. Water that sang as it moved, air that tasted clean." The alien's voice became even softer. "Before the burning." "The burning?" "War came to the homeworlds. Fire from the sky. Dust, forests, turned to ash." Zeph looked down at the soup. This one was very young then. Barely understood what was happening. Jake felt that twist in his stomach again. He had read about wars in the galaxy, but they always seemed distant and unreal. Here was someone who had lived through one. Someone who had lost everything, I'm sorry, Jake said. That must have been terrible. Many species suffered in that war. Kethmori were not the only ones to lose homes. But we were blamed for starting it. Maybe that blame was fair. This one was too young to know the truth. Jake broke a cracker in half and offered part to Zeph. What matters is what you do now, not what happened before you were old enough to choose. Zeph looked at Jake with surprise. Tall walker Jake thinks. Past mistakes do not define present choices. I think people can change. I think you shouldn't have to pay for things you didn't do. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Zeph finished the soup and ate the crackers. Jake watched the few late-night travelers who passed through the food court. Most ignored them completely. A few glanced over with curiosity, but no one approached. Tell me about your species, Jake said. What are humans like on their home world? It was Jake's turn to think carefully. We single quotes, complicated, he said finally. We fight a lot, sometimes for stupid reasons. We can be selfish and short-sighted. But we also care about each other, even strangers. We have this weird need to help people who are in trouble. This is why Tall Walker Jake brings food to unknown Kethmori. Probably. My mom always said I couldn't walk past a herd animal without trying to help it. Guess that applies to herd aliens too. Zeph made a sound that might have been laughter. This one is grateful for human strangeness. Jake smiled. What about the Kethmori? What were your people like before the war? Zeph's expression became distant, proud, perhaps too proud. We built great cities among the stars. We thought we were wise and strong. We made rules for other species to follow. The alien paused. Maybe we forgot that wisdom and strength should be used to protect, not to control. Sounds like you learned something the hard way. This one learned that power without kindness becomes tyranny. And tyranny always falls, usually taking innocence with it. Jake thought about that. He wondered if humans would make the same mistakes as they grew more powerful in the galaxy. History suggested that every species went through periods of thinking they were better than everyone else. Hey, how many Kethmori are left? Jake asked. Few, maybe thousands scattered across the rim worlds. Most live quietly now, trying not to draw attention. Some like this one, search for others of their kind. And you're trying to reach a colony? It's a small settlement? This one received message that other survivors had gathered there. It may be this one's only chance to find family. Jake pulled out the dried fruit and offered some to Zeph. How long will it take to get there? Many more months, if transport can be found. This one has few credits left. May need to work passage on cargo ships. That sounds dangerous. Everything is dangerous for scattered Kethmori, but staying in one place is also dangerous. Better to move toward hope than to wait for despair. Jake admired that attitude. Zeph had lost everything but was still fighting to build something new. It reminded Jake of stories his grandfather had told about people who had lost their homes. In wars on Earth, they had found ways to start over, even when it seemed impossible. What kind of work did your people do before the war? Jake asked. Many things. Artists, builders, teachers. This one's family were. Zeph paused, as if trying to decide how much to share. This one's family worked with growing things, made gardens that fed many people. Like farming? Yes, but more. Kethmori could make plants grow in places where nothing should live. Desert worlds, ice worlds, even in the emptiness of space. It was a gift our people had. Jake was impressed. That sounds incredibly useful. The galaxy could use more food production. Apps. But few species trust Kethmori knowledge now. They think we might use it as a weapon, like in the old days. Would you? Zeph looked directly at Jake. This one learned that hungry people do not care about politics. They only care about food. If this one could grow food for hungry people, that would be enough purpose for a lifetime. Jake believed that. There was something in Zeph's voice that convinced him the small alien was telling the truth. They talked for another hour. Jake learned about different worlds Zeph had visited. Zeph learned about Earth and human customs. Both of them were surprised by how much they had in common. Despite being from completely different species, when Jake's break time was over, he had to get back to work. I need to finish cleaning, he said. But I'll be back tomorrow night. Same time. This one will be here, Zeph said. If security does not find this one first? Jake frowned. What do you mean? Day manager spoke to security. They look for someone sleeping in food court. This one heard them talking. Jake's worry came back full force. Where will you go? This one will find somewhere. Always do. No, Jake said suddenly. I have an idea. There's a storage room in section 12. It's not used much, and it has a lock on the inside. You could sleep there safely. Zeph stared at him. Tall walker Jake would risk job to help unknown Kethmori? Jake thought about that. Carol had warned him to report anyone sleeping rough. If he got caught helping Zeph hide, he could get fired. But looking at the small, tired alien, Jake realized he didn't care about the risk. Jake had been bringing food to Zeph for 6 nights in a row. The small alien had been using the storage room he suggested, and it was working well. Zeph looked better now. The dark circles under those big eyes were gone, and the pale blue skin did not look so thin and fragile. They had developed a routine. Jake would finish most of his cleaning work first. Then he would go to the storage room where Zeph waited. They would sit together and share a meal while talking about their lives, their worlds, and their dreams for the future. Jake had learned that Zeph was much smarter than most people realized. The small alien knew about mathematics, science, and engineering. Zeph could speak 7 different galactic languages and understood the politics of dozens of species. But what impressed Jake most was how Zeph talked about other people. Even after losing everything, Zeph still hoped for the best from strangers. On the 7th night, Jake arrived at work to find the station in chaos. Carol Peterson was standing at the main desk with 3 security officers. Her face was red with stress, and she was talking fast into her communication device. Other workers stood in small groups, whispering to each other and looking scared. What's going on? Jake asked one of the cargo handlers. Ships, the man said. Big ones. Appeared out of nowhere about an hour ago. Security says they're military. Vessels, but nobody knows whose they are. Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. Military ships usually meant trouble. Sometimes pirates attacked the transit station to steal cargo. Sometimes there were border disputes between different species. Either way, it was bad news for everyone. He clocked in and found Carol. She looked relieved to see him. Jake, thank goodness you're here. We need all hands working tonight. These ships have everyone spooked, and half our staff called in sick. What kind of ships are they? Jake asked. That's the weird part. They're Kethmori vessels, really old ones from before the war. Security ran the ship's signatures through the database, and these things are ancient. We're talking about technology that's older than some civilizations. Jake's blood turned to ice. Kethmori ships. That could not be a coincidence, not when Zeph was hiding in storage room 12. Have they made contact? Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Not yet. They're just sitting out there in formation. 5 ships, all of them bigger than anything I've ever seen. The station commander is trying to figure out what they want. Jake nodded and grabbed his cleaning cart. His hands were shaking, but he tried to act normal. He needed to get to Zeph and find out what was happening. But as he started toward Section 12, the station's communication system came alive. A voice spoke in perfect universal standard, but with an accent Jake had never heard before. It was musical, like Zeph's voice, but deeper and more commanding. Meridian Transit Hub. This is the Imperial Fleet of the Kethmori Empire. We request permission to dock. Come in peace, seeking information about one of our people. The entire station went quiet. Jake had never heard such complete silence in 3 years of working there. Even the background hum of the air system seemed to stop. Then everyone started talking at once. Workers asked questions no one could answer. What? Security officers shouted orders that no one understood. Travelers began packing their things. Ready? To leave on the next transport, Jake pushed his cart through the confusion and headed for the storage room. He had to warn Zeph. If the Kethmori were looking for one of their people, they might be looking for Zeph. And Jake did not know if that was good news or bad news. He reached Section 12 and knocked on the storage room door. Zeph. Open up. We need to talk. The door opened slowly. Zeph looked out with worried eyes. This one heard the announcement. Imperial fleet is here, yeah. Are you in trouble? Are they looking for you, Zeph? Was quiet for a long moment. This one does not know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Imperial fleet has not been seen in this sector for many years. We need to figure out what to do. They're looking for you. And they find you here. What happens? This one does not know, Zeph repeated. It depends on why they search. Jake could see that Zeph was scared. The small alien's hands were shaking, and those big, dark eyes kept looking toward the door as if expecting soldiers to burst in at any moment. Okay, Jake said. Let's think about this. You said your family worked with growing things, right? Maybe they need you for something important. Maybe this is good news. Or maybe this one is wanted for crimes this one did not commit. Many Kethmori were blamed for things they did not do after the war. The communication system came alive again. This time the voice was different. Still musical, but older and more formal. Citizens of Meridian Transit Hub, we apologize for any concern our arrival has caused. We seek one of our people who has been missing for many months. This person is very important to us. We mean no harm to anyone, but we must find them. We ask for your cooperation. Jake and Zeph looked at each other. There was no doubt now. The Imperial fleet was looking for Zeph. I think we need to make a decision, Jake said. Either we tell them you're here, or we try to hide you until they leave. If this one hides and they find this one anyway, it will be worse. Better to face whatever comes with honor. Jake admired Zeph's courage, but he was still worried. What if they want to punish you for something? What if they think you did something wrong? Then this one will accept punishment. But this one has done nothing wrong since leaving the homeworlds. This one has only tried to survive and find family. That's not good enough, Jake said firmly. If they want to take you, they'll have to explain why. They'll have to go through me first. Zeph stared at Jake with surprise. Tallwalker Jake would stand against Imperial fleet for unknown Kethmori. You're not unknown to me? My friend, before Zeph could respond, they heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. Not the soft shoes of station workers, but the hard sound of boots. Military boots. Jake opened the storage room door and looked out. A group of beings walked down the hallway toward them. They were Kethmori, but not like Zeph. These were tall and strong, wearing armor that seemed to be made of living metal. The armor moved and shifted as they walked, reflecting the lights of the station in strange patterns. The leader of the group was the tallest, silver markings on the armor that probably indicated rank. When the group reached the storage room, they stopped. You are the human Jake Morrison? The leader asked. Jake's heart was pounding, but he stepped out of the storage room and faced the soldiers. Yeah, that's me. What do you want? Seek one of our people. We have information that you may have encountered this person. Depends on who you're looking for and why. The soldier's helmet retracted, revealing a face that looked like an older, more serious version of Zeph. The same pale blue skin, the same large dark eyes, but with lines of age and authority. We seek Prince Kethmer, third heir to the Imperial throne. The prince has been missing for over a year. Recent intelligence suggests the prince may have passed through this station. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Prince? Heir to the throne? He looked back at the storage room, where Zeph was still hiding. I've met a lot of aliens working here, Jake said carefully. Can you describe this prince? Small in stature, pale blue skin, large eyes. The prince would likely be traveling alone and might appear to be in need of assistance. The prince is inexperienced in the ways of the galaxy outside the Empire. That describes Zeph perfectly. But a prince? Jake had been feeding a prince leftovers and letting them sleep in a storage room. If someone had helped this prince, Jake said slowly, what would happen to them? The soldier's expression changed slightly, but that would depend on the nature of the help provided. Those who aided the prince would be rewarded. Those who harmed or exploited the prince would face imperial justice. Jake made his decision. Zeph. He called back to the storage room. I think you need to come out here. The storage room door opened fully, and Zeph stepped out. The small alien looked even smaller next to the armored soldiers. but Zeph held their head high and walked forward with dignity. When the lead soldier saw Zeph, he immediately dropped to one knee. The other soldiers followed his example. "Your Highness," the leader said, "we have searched for you across half the galaxy." Zeph looked at the kneeling soldiers, then at Jake. This one is sorry for the deception. Tallwalker Jake. This one did not lie about being Keth Mori, but this one did not tell the whole truth about family." Jake stared at his friend. "Prince Kethmer, a member of the Imperial family, someone important enough for 5 warships to come looking for them." "You're really a prince?" Jake asked. "Yes, but this one is also the person who is hungry and alone. This one is also the person who Tallwalker Jake showed kindness to when no one else cared. That person is real too." The lead soldier stood up. "Your Highness, we must return you to the Empire immediately. The Emperor has been concerned about your absence." "The Emperor lives?" Zeph asked with surprise. "Yes, Your Highness, and he wishes to speak with you urgently. Also wishes to speak with the human who provided aid during your time of need." Jake felt dizzy. The Emperor wanted to talk to him. He was just a custodian who had shared some soup with a hungry alien. How had his simple life become so complicated so quickly? The Imperial shuttle was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. From the outside, it looked like a ship made of dark metal that moved and shifted like liquid. As they approached, sections of the hull opened without any visible doors or hatches. It was as if the ship itself was alive and welcoming them inside. Jake followed Zeph and the soldiers into the shuttle. The interior was just as strange as the outside. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the metal itself. There were no seats, like in human ships. Instead, sections of the floor rose up to form chairs that fit perfectly too. Each person's body relax. "Tallwalker Jake," Zeph said softly, "Imperial ships know how to care for their passengers." "The ship is alive?" Jake asked. "Not alive exactly, but not dead either. Keth Mori technology blends the grown and the built. Our ships are partners, not just tools." As the shuttle lifted off from the station, Jake felt no movement at all. Artificial gravity was perfect, and there was no sense of acceleration. Through windows that appeared in the walls, when he looked toward them, Jake could see the transit station growing smaller below them. "How long will it take to reach the flagship?" Jake asked. "We are already there," the lead soldier said. Jake looked out the window again. Above them was a ship so large that he could not see the edges of it. It looked like a floating city made of the same living metal as the shuttle. Lights moved across its surface, in patterns that seemed almost like breathing. "That's the flagship?" Jake asked. "The Eternal Dawn," Zeph said with something like awe in their voice. "This one has not seen it since childhood. It is beautiful." The shuttle docked inside a bay that was larger than most buildings Jake had ever seen. Hundreds of smaller ships filled the space, each one different from the others. Some looked like the shuttle they rode in. Others were clearly built for war, with weapons that Jake could not even identify. A few looked more like works of art than vehicles. As they left the shuttle, Jake was overwhelmed by the activity around them. Keth Mori, in different types of clothing and armor, moved with purpose through the bay. Some looked like Zeph, small and delicate. Others were tall and strong like the soldiers. Few seemed to be made of light itself, floating above the ground. "So many people," Jake said. "The Eternal Dawn carries 20,000 souls," the lead soldier explained. "It is both warship and city, home to many who lost their worlds in the Great War." They walked through corridors that changed shape as they moved.
Ow.
The walls bent and curved to accommodate their group, and new pathways opened when they needed to turn. Jake felt like he was walking through the inside of a living creature. "Are you nervous, Jake?" asked Zeph. "Yes," Zeph admitted. "This one has not seen the Emperor in many years. Much has happened since this one was taken. This one will explain later. We must face whatever judgment awaits." They reached a vast chamber at the heart of the ship. The ceiling stretched so high that Jake could not see the top of it. Light flowed down from above like gentle rain, illuminating a space that could hold thousands of people. but the chamber was empty except for a raised platform in the center. On the platform sat a throne that seemed to be carved from a single, enormous crystal. The crystal pulsed with inner light, shifting through colors that Jake had no names for. And on the throne sat the most impressive being Jake had ever seen. Emperor Kethel was ancient beyond anything Jake could imagine. The Emperor's form was tall and regal, but there was something timeless about the way they sat. The pale blue skin was marked with silver lines that moved like living tattoos. The eyes were the same large dark orbs as Zeph's, but they held depths. That spoke of centuries of experience and wisdom, approached the Emperor said. The voice filled the entire chamber without seeming loud. It resonated in Jake's bones and made him feel very small. Zeph walked forward steadily, and Jake followed. When they reached the base of the platform, Zeph knelt. Jake was not sure what he should do, so he stayed standing but bowed his head respectfully. "Rise, young prince," the Emperor said gently. "We have much to discuss." Zeph stood but kept there, eyes down. This one greets the eternal Emperor and begs forgiveness for causing worry. "There is nothing to forgive, dear one. You were taken from us against your will. The fault lies with those who sought to use you for their own purposes." Jake felt confused. Taken? He had assumed that Zeph had left home voluntarily to search for other survivors. The Emperor's ancient eyes turned to Jake. "And you must be Jake Morrison, the human who showed kindness to our lost prince?" "Yes, sir, your majesty. I mean—" Jake stumbled over the words. He had no idea how to address an alien emperor. The Emperor made a sound that might have been gentle laughter. "Jake Morrison will suffice. Titles are less important than actions, and your actions have earned our deep respect. I just shared some food," Jake said. "It wasn't anything special, was it not?" The Emperor stood from the throne and walked down to where Jake and Zeph waited. Up close, Jake could see that the silver lines on the Emperor's skin were actually tiny symbols that moved and changed constantly. "Let me tell you a story, Jake Morrison." The Emperor gestured, and the air around them shimmered. Images appeared, showing scenes from the past. Jake saw Zeph as a younger alien, wearing fine clothes and living in beautiful palaces. Prince Kethmer was raised in luxury and privilege. The Emperor began, as third heir to the throne. They were being prepared for a life of leadership and responsibility. But certain members of our court believed that the prince was too gentle for the harsh realities of ruling an empire. The images changed, showing dark figures surrounding a sleeping Zeph. 2 years ago, these courtiers arranged for the prince to be kidnapped, intended to have the prince trained in cruelty and hardship, believing this would make them a stronger ruler. Jake felt sick. They kidnapped their own prince. Yes, and for many months, the prince was held prisoner, forced to endure trials meant to break their spirit and rebuild it in a harsher image. The images showed Zeph in chains, being forced to work in terrible conditions. Jake could see the fear and pain in his friend's eyes during those dark times. But the prince escaped, the Emperor continued. Wounded and alone, they fled across the galaxy, hiding their true identity to avoid recapture. That's when I met them, Jake realized. Yes, for months the prince wandered from station to station, learning hard truths about how our people are viewed by the galaxy. They experienced hunger, cold, and the casual cruelty that strangers often show to those who are powerless. The images faded, and the Emperor looked directly at Jake. In all that time, through all those encounters with hundreds of beings across dozens of worlds, only one person showed simple kindness without expectation of reward. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. Anyone would have done the same thing, would they? The Emperor asked. The prince tells me that many beings saw their need but chose to ignore it. Others demanded payment for small kindnesses. Some tried to take advantage of what they saw as weakness. Zeph spoke up quietly. Tallwalker Jake was the first person to offer help without asking what this one could give in return. The first to treat this one as a person worthy of basic kindness. The Emperor nodded. And that, Jake Morrison, taught our prince something that no amount of royal education could provide. It taught them that true strength comes not from the power to take what you want, but from the choice to give. What others need? Jake looked at Zeph, seeing his friend in a new light. You never told me any of this? This one was afraid, Zeph admitted. Afraid that if Tallwalker Jake knew the truth, the kindness would change. That it would become something done for reward rather than something given from the heart. But it wouldn't have changed anything, Jake said. You were hungry. You needed help. That's all that mattered. The Emperor smiled, and Jake felt warmth spread through the chamber. And that, dear Jake Morrison, is why you are here. You have shown our prince that there are still beings in the galaxy who choose kindness over gain, who help others simply because it is right to do so. The ancient ruler began walking slowly around them. For too long, the Kethmori Empire has been isolated, turned inward by pride and old wounds. We have forgotten how to trust other species, and they have forgotten how to trust us. But the prince's experience with you has reminded us of something we had lost. There are still good people in the galaxy. People worth knowing, worth protecting. Worth learning from? Jake felt overwhelmed. I don't understand what you want from me. We want to learn, the Emperor said simply. Your species is young in the galaxy, but you possess something that many older civilizations have forgotten. You still believe in helping strangers. You still practice kindness without calculation. The Emperor stopped in front of Jake. We would like to propose a partnership between our peoples. It's not the usual trade agreements or military alliances, but something new. A friendship based on the simple truth that kindness matters more than power. Jake looked at Zeph, who was watching him. With hope in those big, dark eyes, what would that mean exactly? It would mean that humans and Kethmori would work together to solve problems, to help those in need, to build something better than what existed before. It would mean that your natural compassion and our ancient wisdom could accomplish things that neither could achieve alone. 6 months after Jake Morrison shook hands with the Emperor of the Kethmori, the galaxy had become a very different place. The news of the alliance between humans and the Kethmori Empire had spread across every inhabited world. At first, most species had been confused, and the Kethmori had been isolated for so long that many young beings had never even seen one. Humans were still considered newcomers who barely understood galactic politics. But when the details of how the alliance became public, something unexpected happened. The story of a custodian sharing soup with a hungry alien became famous across dozens of worlds. Other species began to ask questions about their own traditions of hospitality and kindness. Jake sat in his new office aboard the Eternal Dawn, reading reports from human colonies and Kethmori settlements. His official title was Cultural Ambassador, but most people just called him the Bridge Builder. The job was nothing like his old work as a custodian, but in some ways it was exactly the same. He still helped people solve problems, still cleaned up messes. The messes were just bigger now. A soft chime announced that someone wanted to enter his office. Come in, Jake called. Prince Kethmer entered, wearing robes that shimmered with the same living light as the ship's walls. No. But Zeph still had the same gentle manner and the same big dark eyes that had first caught Jake's attention in the food court.
How are the reports today?
Staffed, settling into a chair that formed itself from the floor. Good news mostly, Jake said. The joint farming project on Kepler 7 is working better than anyone expected. Human farming techniques combined with Kethmori plant knowledge is producing 3 times more food than either species could grow alone. And the refugee settlements? Even better. We've relocated over 10,000 beings from failed colonies to new worlds. Humans are good at moving fast when people need help. Your people are good at finding places where life can flourish. Together, we're solving problems that used to be impossible. Zeph smiled. The Emperor is very pleased. But there is something else we need to discuss. Jake set down his tablet. What's wrong?
Oh.
Nothing is wrong, but we have received a request. That might interest you. The Zentari Federation wants to meet with us. Jake raised his eyebrows. The Zentari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They controlled vast territories and had technology that was almost magical. They had also never shown any interest in humans before. What do they want? They want to understand how we built our alliance so quickly. The Zentari have been trying to form partnerships with other species for decades, but they always fail. Their approach is too formal, too focused on laws and contracts. They think we might have a better way, Jake laughed. Our way was sharing. Leftover soup? Exactly. And that is what makes it powerful. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Zeph traveled to the Zentari homeworld. The planet was beautiful but cold, covered in crystal cities that reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. The Zentari themselves were tall and elegant, with skin that looked like polished, metal and eyes like stars. The meeting took place in a council chamber that could hold thousands. Jake felt very small as he sat at a table surrounded by beings who had been ruling the galaxy for centuries, but Zeph sat beside him, and that made everything easier. Humans and Kethmori, the Zentari Prime Minister began, we have studied your alliance with great interest. We do not understand how you achieved such cooperation so rapidly. Our own attempts at partnership usually require years of negotiation. Jake looked around the room at all the serious faces. Maybe that's the problem, he said. The Prime Minister tilted their head. We do not understand. You're trying too hard. Jake explained. When I met Zeph, I wasn't thinking about forming an alliance. I just saw someone who was hungry, and I had food to share. Everything else grew from that. But surely there must be protocols, agreements, structures. Another Zentari official said. Sure, we have those now, Jake said. But they came after the friendship, not before it. You can't write rules for caring about people. You either do it or you don't. Zeph spoke up. Humans have a gift for seeing individuals rather than just representatives of their species. When Jake offered this one food, he did not think this. Is it Kethmori? What does my species want from their species? He thought this person looks hungry. I should help. The Zentari officials murmured among themselves in their musical language. Finally, the Prime Minister spoke again. Would you be willing to help us learn this approach? We have many conflicts that traditional diplomacy has failed to resolve. And so Jake's job became even bigger. He and Zeph began traveling throughout the galaxy, teaching other species about what they called friendship diplomacy, instead of starting with treaties and trade agreements. They encouraged different groups to find small ways to help each other first. It worked surprisingly well. The Aquari water dwellers and the Parathi fire breathers had been enemies for generations. But when Jake suggested that the Aquari help the Parathi terraform a desert world, while the Parathi helped the Aquari warm their cold moon colonies, species discovered they had more in common than they thought, the insectoid. Hive minds and the individualist free traders had never been able to communicate effectively. But when a plague struck one of the free trader worlds, the hive minds offered medical assistance without asking for anything in return. The gesture of kindness opened conversations that had been impossible before. 1 year after the first meeting with the Zentari, Jake found himself in a place he had never expected to be. The Galactic Council chambers on the central world of Nexus Prime. The council was made up of representatives from over 300 species. For thousands of years, they had struggled to resolve conflicts and build cooperation between very different civilizations. Their methods worked, but slowly and with great difficulty. Today, they were voting on something called the Morrison Doctrine. Jake sat in the observation gallery with Zeph, watching as species after species stood to speak. The Morrison Doctrine was simple, before any formal negotiations between groups. They had to find at least one way to help each other without expecting anything in return. Only after they had established that foundation of goodwill could they begin working on treaties and agreements. Do you think it will pass? Jake whispered to Zeph. This one believes so. Too many species have seen the benefits of friendship diplomacy to ignore it now. The final vote was closer than Jake had hoped, but it passed. From now on, the galactic standard for diplomacy would include what they were calling the human element, the requirement that all negotiations begin with acts of kindness. After the vote, Jake and Zeph walked through the gardens that surrounded the council building. Beings from dozens of different worlds strolled the paths together, many of them species that had been enemies just a few years before. Hard to believe this all started with leftover soup, Jake said. This one has been thinking. About that, Zeph replied. Perhaps it did not start with the soup. Perhaps it started when humans first decided that kindness was more important than survival. What do you mean? Most species become kinder after they become safe and powerful. Humans are different. You show kindness even when you are weak, even when it costs you something. That is very rare in the galaxy. Jake thought about that. We were just too stupid to know better. Zeph laughed, the musical sound drawing smiles from passing aliens. Perhaps. But if so, it is a very useful kind of stupidity. 3 years later, Jake Morrison was no longer just a custodian or even just a cultural ambassador. He had become something entirely new, the galaxy's first professor of applied kindness. The position had been created just for him by the Galactic University system. Students from hundreds of worlds came to learn about human approaches to conflict resolution. But the most important part of the curriculum was not lectures or textbooks. It was practical work. Every student had to spend time helping others without any expectation of reward. They worked in refugee camps, assisted with disaster relief, and found small ways to make life better for strangers. Only after they understood how kindness worked in practice could they study the theory behind it. Jake's old transit station had become a monument. The food court where he first met Zeph was now a museum dedicated to the power of simple gestures. Millions of beings visited every year to see the corner where galactic history had changed over a bowl of soup. But Jake's favorite part of the whole story was still happening every day. Human ships traveled throughout the galaxy carrying relief, supplies, and medical aid to places that needed help. Kethmori agricultural experts worked with dozens of species to transform dead worlds into gardens. Other species had begun their own programs of assistance and cooperation. The galaxy had not become perfect. There were still conflicts and problems that seemed impossible to solve. But now there was a standard response to every crisis. First, find a way to help. Everything else could be figured out later. Jake kept a small apartment on the Eternal Dawn, but he traveled constantly. Everywhere he went, he told the same story. Kindness is not weakness. Helping others is not naive. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is share your lunch with a stranger. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, that stranger turns out to be exactly the friend the galaxy was waiting for.